Hi everyone! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. I've officially reached that point in my life where I hear myself asking aloud, where did I put my glasses? And I've also accepted that I've reached that point in my life where it's time to embrace the eyeglass chain. And you know what? Since I made this and started using it, well, I haven't lost my glasses, so I highly recommend. Today's little project takes about 5 yards of crochet thread, and I recommend the crochet thread, and I added beads to mine. And I highly recommend the beads. One, it makes it really pretty. I went with Easter colors. And two, it gives it a nice drapey weight that hangs off your glasses nicely and around your neck. This whole thing's about 30 inches long, so it'll hang your glasses right about where you need them around your solar plexus, but you can make it a little longer or a little shorter based on your own personal needs. And of course, these are great for eyeglasses or sunglasses too. You are also going to need a couple of little eyeglass connector end connectors. I think they're called temple holders. There's a couple of different names for them. You can buy them, official ones, from like Amazon or craft stores or whatever, but I actually made a pair. I DIY'd a pair that are working very nicely, and I'm going to show you how I did that in today's tutorial. So without further ado, let's grab some crochet thread, grab our hooks, grab some pretty beads. We'll head on over to the craft table and we'll stitch up an eyeglass chain together. In order to make our eyeglass chains, I'm using a size 10 crochet thread that's a 100% mercerized cotton. You only need around 5 yards, so you need very little for this. And I'm using a 1.75 millimeter hook. It's also known as a size 0. A 2 millimeter hook is fine too, but something small, small enough that you can still manage it, but big enough that you can use your crochet thread with it. A pair of scissors, and you're going to need connector ends for your eyeglass chain in order to connect the chain to your eyeglass holder. Now you may have a pair lying around because you have an old eyeglass chain that you no longer need. You can find these in a package of 10 or 12 for sale on Amazon. I've got a link in the description box down below to help you start your search if you want to start there. I just DIY'd a pair, however. I've got some rainbow loom elastics that I have from other craft projects and a couple of slightly larger beads that will fit over the end of my crochet hook. So it's important that your crochet hook can fit through those beads. Then I just pulled the bead onto a pair of those elastics, put the bead squarely in the center, and then that allows me to slip one end of those elastics onto my glasses, and I will be attaching the crochet to the other end. And then I can just sort of tighten up the bead on the glasses when I need to wear it. And they won't slip off because the rubber band is nice and grabby. Most importantly, for this pretty little eyeglass chain project, you want some beads. These are glass beads. You can use plastic, of course. More importantly, they're very small. They're 3 millimeter in diameter. I got both of these packs at the dollar store, so you should be able to find something similar at the dollar store. Importantly, though, you want a hole through the center of your beads that's big enough that your size 10 crochet thread can fit through them. We are going to pre-string all of our beads before we start crocheting, and you're going to want at least 45 of them. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. I've gone ahead and selected 46. It's always better to have, I said 45 in the intro, but I'm going to go with 46 beads. I've got them laid out in the order that I want them strung onto my yarn so that I will, as I use them as I crochet, they'll be in the color order I want. I have 7 different colors, so I've got them in a repeating order here. I'm going to start with the last one and work my way through them all. It helps if you've got a little wax candle nearby. You can run the end of your crochet thread over that wax candle a couple times, and that will help kind of stiffen the end of it. Or you can just sort of keep it damp between your fingers and very carefully just thread all of your beads onto that crochet thread. This will take you a little bit of time, so get comfortable. Carefully work through them all one by one until you've got all 46 of them, or however many beads you might want. You might want more than me, you might want fewer than me, until you've got all the beads in the order you want pre-thread onto your crochet thread. And then come on back and we'll start crocheting. I have pre-strung all 46 of my beads, so I'm all ready to start crocheting. So let's get that going. We are going to take the end of our crochet thread, make a slip knot. We're going to chain 6. So a nice little chain of 6, pull up on that working loop, put your hook down, grab one of your end connectors and take the knotted end and pass it through one side. So I'm just going to stretch mine out, get that little end all the way through so it's sitting on the inside of those chains. So your chains are now running through the end of your connector. Put your hook back in your working loop. And slip your hook through that first chain you made and slip stitch. Okay, so now you've chained 6, you've made a ring, but you've also slung your little end connector into it. So now you've connected your crochet to your end connector. I'm just going to slip my bead up just so the whole thing doesn't want to fall apart. And that feels pretty secure. So there we go. Connector attached to crochet. That's our little chained ring. Let's slide up our first little bead and get that going. When you want to crochet around a bead, you want to slip the bead as close to your hook as possible. Grab the thread on the other side of the bead. So you see I'm grabbing the thread on the other side of the bead and chain. Chain 4. Slide up your next bead. I love the sound of them sort of tapping away on the counter there. Keep that bead as close to the hook as possible and chain around it. Chain 4. Slide up the next bead. Keep it as close to the hook as you can. Grab the thread and chain around it. And that slips all of your pretty little beads into place. Chain 4 in between each bead. Slide up the next bead. Chain around it. So you can see the chain runs underneath the bead there. Chain 4. And repeat. You're going to chain 4, slide up a bead, chain around the bead, chain 4, and keep repeating that until you've made your way through all 45 of your beads. And just before you do number 46, come on back and we'll talk about finishing. Once you've repeated that all the way along and you've done your 45th bead, chain 4 more, slide up that last bead, chain around it, and now you're going to chain 6, pull up on your loop, and you're going to snip your thread. Be very careful, give yourself a decent amount of tail, I don't know, 10 centimeters, 4 inches, something like that, just enough so that nothing will come undone on you. And now you're going to slip the other connector into your work. So just get the whole kit and caboodle through that connector, pull your working loop and your tail out so that it's on there. Then you can put your hook back in your loop. Slide your connector up close to your hook. You're going to find the 6th chain from the hook. It should be right after that last bead that you made. So find your last bead and the chain right next to it. Slip your hook right through there and slip stitch. And that will connect your other connector in a chain 6 loop to the other end. Fasten off, and now you're going to weave those tails in And you're going to want a sort of a sewing needle probably to do it with. And all you're really going to do is just run them underneath these few chains a couple times. Now, in order to keep it from coming undone, especially if you have really slippery thread, you can consider some of these options. A little bit of fabric glue after you've woven it through the top few chains. Run some fabric glue right across the entire thing and let it sit and dry, and you can trim the excess, and the glue will help keep that tail from wanting to come undone. You can do it on the other side. You can weave it all the way down and then maybe all the way back up again if you've got tight tension, and that will keep it in place. And if you don't really care, just weave it down through a few of these chains and snip the end. But I do feel like a little bit of glue kind of will keep it from unraveling on you. And I'll show you what it looks like if you want to weave them in. I'm going to grab my needle. Make sure it's a needle with an eye large enough that you can slip that crochet thread through it. And then you're just going to wiggle your needle back and forth through those chains. And I feel like this is something you kind of have to be slow and steady with. I'm going to run them all the way through those chains up to that first bead, or I guess the second bead in this case. There we go. Put that down. And as you can see, it really doesn't show when you weave it through those little stitches there. So if you put some fabric glue or a little bit of glue in there and then trim that end, it would disappear completely. Otherwise, you can double back, and again, be very careful running your needle through those chains. There we go. I always give it a little tug, and then I'm just going to trim off that tiny little bit of fluff. This is going to sit pretty close to my ear, so it's not going to be noticeable. And that is a very tidy way to weave in that tail too, and that will stay put. Do it to the other side to trim anything that's unnecessary, and then you can put these on your glasses. So I'm going to move my little bead back so that it gives me as much space as possible on one end. Slip the end of my glasses through there, and then I'm going to pull the bead back up so that, in my case at least, the elastic wants to sort of stay as close to the edge as possible, and that way it won't want to come undone, which is great because I think I'm kind of a busy glasses on off kind of wearer, so I like to be able to just let them drop on my chest and not worry that they're going to fall off. And the rubber band works out pretty nicely. So you gotta put it on like a bit like a necklace. You know, you kind of put the back on around your neck, and then when you take your glasses off, it just hangs across the front of your sweater or your front, right where it's supposed to, kind of like a necklace. And then of course when you put them on, they just sort of hang evenly on either side. I went with chains as opposed to any other kind of stitches because I wanted it to be as thin and delicate as possible. And I used the mercerized crochet thread, the cotton, in particular because it's strong. And the beads just give it that little extra bit of weight that you need. It's not thick, it's not irritating. I don't even notice it touching my face as it goes down either side, so it's not going to irritate me. And of course, cotton doesn't bother me or itch or anything like that, so another good reason to use the crochet thread. And most of us have a little bit of crochet thread lying around. It's one of those things that you tend to accumulate because people find out that you crochet and they're like, oh, here, you know, my grandmother doesn't need these anymore, and you've got like all kinds of spools of the stuff. I certainly have a lot of it, and I am starting to work my way through my collection. For example, I have little bits left over from other projects. I've got about, I don't know, 20 or so yards of a really dark green that I'm eyeballing right now in the corner. I'm going to make a Christmas themed one. I'm going to put some Christmas beads into it. I'm going to use the dark green thread for the actual chain. And I'm also thinking about making a tropical colored one for my sunglasses for the summer. I think that would be kind of neat too. That way, you know, I can take my sunglasses off and put my reading glasses on. I've hit that point in my life. But you know what? This does make things a lot easier. And now I'm not going to lose my glasses, and that's the most important part. I hope you enjoyed making one of these along with us this week, and we'll see you soon here on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a great week. Bye guys!
Hi everybody, Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.